So, who remembers these guys from a Toy Summer review way back whenever that actually was? This was me talking about two fairly obscure and rare toys out of Germany for an even more obscure and rare toy line called The Adventures of T-Rex. Something that was really big in my childhood, but I'm like one of 5 people that still remembers the cartoon. Well, apparently a few other people do, because my buddy Benny over in Hungary help hook me up with the rest of the toy line, or at the very least, most of it. So now that I have enough to talk about the series itself, we're going to dive into the entirety of the toy line. And we will start with these unarmed guys, if I can bring all 5 of them in now that I have all 5. So the idea behind the Adventures of T-Rex were 5 nightclub performing brothers masquerading as superheroes by night. And as you can tell, they kind of went a little bit Ninja Turtle with the vibe, where everyone has the exact same design and does the exact same mold. Hey, that makes producing them really easy. But you can only tell the difference of them by color, and this makes it a little bit more difficult than Turtles because all of them had a name that started with B. You had Bubba, Bruno, Bugsy, Brittany, and Buck. No, actually that might be Bernie, now that I think about it. But yeah, it made it very hard to tell them apart. And unlike the Turtles, you didn't have very broad personalities to kind of differentiate them. They all just were kind of the same dude with just little variances here and there. They actually gave them these really corny Hollywood accents, like Jimmy Durante, Humphrey Bogart, Bing Crosby, that kind of thing, just to tell them apart a little bit more. And it didn't work out too well. So here we'll take a close-up look at Bugsy, the leader of the group. You can see done up in purple with the dark green skin, which is more along the lines of what you'd expect out of like a cartoon T-Rex from the early 90s. It's got a very Blues Brothers theme going on to the suit itself. Little bow tie, glasses, and all that. Now, these are not the best made of figures. You can probably tell a little bit of that by the fact, well, the tails aren't painted for starters. That's a little bit annoying. But for the most part, it does get the details of the show right, aside from just being a little bit sloppy with the paint here and there. Also, the sculptors did not know how to do two-dimensional details in 3D, so if you look at the side of their head, you can kind of see where their face stretches to meet the edge of the glasses, because they didn't know how to mold that out, or didn't want to come up with a more complex mold in order to accomplish that. So what you see here is pretty much just a 2 or 3 piece mold in order to make that happen in as few steps as possible. The mold itself is a little bit weird. You can see for some reason they all kind of lean to the left. Bubba here being the worst of them all. A little bit of strangeness in the sculpt. Also, these are pretty cheap toys, so you can see like the paint does get like super blotchy on them from time to time. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it gets a little bit gnarly. And the paint itself seems to wear and chip pretty easily too. Not the best of things. But hey, this is the nightclub look. That's not the interesting one. The interesting one is to transform them into the actual superhero motifs. So, go ahead and switch those out. We can go ahead and get the armored look in here. This was very much an Iron Man scenario where they just kind of had a suit-up sequence in order to form their armor. I actually really like the armor design on these guys. You got some big, heavy details. You've got some logical stuff. Like if I take a look at, we'll take a look at Bugsy again, because why not? He's in the middle. You can actually see in the sculpting where you have extra areas that are detailed like they are like flexible areas, which would be in the biceps and thighs. Makes total sense. Holster on the side included. That's a freeze gun from the show. Hey, look, they painted the tip of the tail. That's accurate. They painted the entirety of the gloves. That is not accurate. They're supposed to be finger cut. And again, they tried to keep it to a simple piece, but the tail is an extra component, and there is no real detail like the glasses that's going to interfere with the 2D, 3D depth problem. So instead, you get something that's a nice little tiny representation. Albeit again, it's a fairly basic pose, and all of the brothers share it, which is a little bit strange. Now, they're all pretty consistent. You can see they all kind of have the same little beady, little serious eyes going on. Except, unfortunately, for Bubba here, who looks like he just got back from the optometrist and all of his pupils are dilated. Probably surgeon more than optometrist, because Yeah, he's the only one of mine that does not have his tail. Yeah, I think these are rare. Trying to find the figure themselves, try finding parts for the figures. That's a little bit harder. So unfortunately, yeah, I have about 95% of the brothers. But still, I like the designs well enough. There's inaccuracies, like they're missing their visors that are their more notable features. The bandanas that they're wearing, that is very Ninja Turtle-esque, should actually be like clear visors. Yeah, so there's some give and take with the designs, but for the most part, it's not bad. So we're gonna leave a few of them out here just so my camera doesn't lose focus here, and might as well, since he's been the feature, we'll keep them out. And we're gonna take a look at the rest of the cast that actually did obtain toys, because there are a few aside from the brothers themselves, and thank God, because this, you can already tell, 5 toys using only 2 molds. We need a little bit of variety here, now don't we? So we have an extended cast to cover, starting with the only ally character to actually come out as a toy. This is Myrna, who is the rich owner of the Dragon Company, where they actually do all of their performing. You can see she's got a very Jessica Rabbit thing going on, right down to having the two-tone outfit in red and lilac colors, and a little bit strangely molded. Of the molding, this is probably my favorite one. You can see her tail molded into the butt. It's got the little rings and jewelry she wears. I'm not sure why her hand is hiked up like that. That seems like a really strange detail to include. A little bit strange. Also strange is the fact that her super long necklace in the show has been rendered by having it wrapped over her arm and her shoulder while she is constantly holding on to it, holding it up like she's super proud of it. This is a little bit odd, to say the least, but at least the designers had the sense to realize that if they sculpted it like the actual necklace, it would trace down her body and look very unnatural. So, of course, we wouldn't want her looking unnatural. Let's take a look at her face now. My God, the things she has seen. I can still see them when I sleep. This is by far the funniest of the sculpts, and strangely enough, they tried to get some of her details and her paint right, but for whatever reason, the spot on the side of her head is so far back. It's like the back of her head when it's supposed to be the side. It's a little bit strange. They at least tried to put her eyeliner in. You see a little trace of purple there. They tried. So she's by far like the funniest figure in the line, but this is about the appropriate time to mention her, so we just go ahead and get that out of the way. So yeah, that's the only female in the entire series that got a toy, compared to like the other 2 females that were actually in the series. It was a boys franchise in the 90s. That's about what you'd expect. So, extending the cast, let's get the big villain in here, and I do mean big. This is Big Boss Graves. No, and not the actual Big Boss that you're thinking of. This one has nothing to do with snakes, except for the fact he is obviously a reptile of some sort. I like the look of this guy with the gigantic shades, like he is so much of the big serious boss character. There's very much like an old school mobster routine with the theme of the show. So this kind of suits in there with like the mob boss kind of look to him. I also love his design. His design always makes me laugh because his outfit looks like a pair of pants that have been pulled completely up past the waist and all the way to his neck. So rather than being a collar, that is actually a belt that is holding the trousers up. How he gets his arms through them, I don't know, but that's pretty much the look that they were going for, I guess. Other than that, yeah, he kind of carries himself a little bit of a mobster detail going on. Also, always liked his one earring with a gigantic spike bulb hanging off of it. Big mace just hanging off of his ear, which you'd imagine would be pretty heavy to wear as an earring, but this is apparently a pretty tough ear. No problem there. This was back in the 90s where they thought if a guy wore just one earring, it meant certain things. It was secret code or something, or it had some hidden meaning. The hidden meaning was he couldn't afford both ears getting pierced. That was the meaning behind it. So yeah, that's Boss Graves. I actually really like this design. And speaking of big boss, he is gigantic compared to the others. Like, not just in height. I mean, his head. Look at that. His head's bigger than the other toys. That is absolutely massive. This is like when the Hulk gets a figure in a toy line, you know there is going to be some other little toy in order to actually compensate for how much plastic difference there is in the wave. And that is met by his main guy, the one he sends out to do his dirty work for him and command from the field, Little Boss. And this being one of my favorite characters from the show. He is loud, a little obnoxious, and a little bit too excitable to do Big Boss's work for him. But I always liked the design. This diminutive little guy was usually in charge of things, and usually the fault of why things kept going wrong. But for the most part, he was kind of a fun character to watch. Now, they kind of captured his very excited design pretty well here. The looking sideways is a little bit strange. But for the most part, it does look fine. And then we turn the head and, oh god. You need a dentist. Like now, I would say. It's like, he either looks like he lost all of his front teeth, or like his teeth have absolutely, he's evolved teeth that have no gaps between them, which would save so much on dental floss. I'm actually jealous in a weird way. But this is another case of, yeah, they couldn't figure out how to mold a three-dimensional detail, so they had to just fake it a little bit. So he's only really meant to be looked from that side, which is unfortunate because he looks better when you can see the front part of his suit and actually get a little look at his pose. It's a little bit unfortunate, a little bit strange there. But again, it's one reason why cheap toys are just so funny to me sometimes. And the last one I've got is another one of the villain cast, and we can cover him really quick. Behold, this is Shooter, another one of the main goons from the show, that usually Little Boss was the one bossing him around. And I like the pose. Like, he's actually got one of the more interesting poses here. One hand in the pocket, got his little nails done up in purple, little spots on the other side of his tail too, so they add a little bit of attention to detail here. Speaking of attention to detail, you can actually make out a little toothpick that he's holding in his mouth. He's definitely, again, going for this little, you can again see where some of like the some of the gangster or mobster stereotypes are rubbing off in his design. And something else rubbing off in his design, remember how the sunglasses looked on the brothers? Well, on the side here, it's not so bad, but if you look from the top down, that's just a little bit horrifying. For some reason, from the top is so much worse than from the side, because this is where your eyebrow bone is supposed to be, isn't it? That's where your brow is. It literally looks like his glasses are sucking his skin into the frames. It's super creepy to look at. And again, a show of, well, they really didn't want to spend too much money on the toy line, did they? And naturally, they did not. T-Rex only lasted one season, and in spite of this whole 5 turning into super armored superheroes, it actually came out before Power Rangers, so don't start citing it as a Power Ranger knockoff. It came before. Ninja Turtle, on the other hand, yeah, this was definitely trying to cash in on the Ninja Turtle franchise, I believe. But at least it was trying to do some original things. It had a very Iron Man approach to its superhero antics. It had some cool features, some cool gags, and cool music in the show even, which is a rare thing for me to enjoy. So this was a really special part of my childhood that I never even knew. 3 years ago, I didn't know toys existed, and now I sit with just about every one of them in front of me. The only one missing being Axe, another one of the villains. But someday, I got a good feeling he's going to end up joining this set. So that's my look at the Adventures of T-Rex Toyline. Super rare, super obscure, only available in Germany, and wow, so not worth it, because none of these are technically good toys, but they make good little representations of a super out there memory from my childhood, so they're going to have a place of honor for quite a long time.